Whether you're tuning in on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or wherever else you might be viewing this from, welcome to Watercooler Wednesday. If you're watching live, please uh, ask questions, tell us your stories, interact with us. We love to see that and get you involved in the conversation. As an added bonus, if you know Eddie Delshad and I from childhood, you can also comment. Just know that depending on what you say from our childhood, I might delete that comment. But definitely, definitely make sure to say hi. And
We
if
at
you're
least
watching
have
the
one
replay,
people's freedom of speech, Dave.
yeah, but this is my water cooler. That's not.
That's
um, so we also have, if you're watching the replay, definitely still comment, ask questions, interact. We will be monitoring those for the next few weeks. I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Dr. Eddie Delshad. We grew up together. Um, Eddie actually immigrated from Iran back when you were how old?
like two or three.
When he was like 2 or 3. We were already in kindergarten, I thought.
We were.
Yeah, you're older than 3 in kindergarten. Come on. So I I remember because he immigrated from Iran and we quickly became friends. I think we were in the same gang in like second grade or something. We had like our recess gang. Both of us have recovered from that. Uh, and Eddie went on to become a dentist, practicing general dentistry. He owned his own dental practice for about a decade, while also teaching. He's part of the dental faculty at UCLA's dental school to this day. He's also a consultant and broker, helping dentists who are looking to sell their practice or purchase a practice at Integrity Practice Sales. Uh, at some point in Eddie's career, he got, in his words, burnout and sort of super bored of that general practice life, and so he looked to make a change, and that's why I thought it would be such a great opportunity to have him on to talk about that experience, how he came to that decision, deciding to make a change, and how scary that may have been for him, and where his journey went from there. So we're going to get into all of that. But I also warned him that we start every one of our water coolers because this great friend of mine had never watched a water cooler Wednesday before, apparently. So I had to warn him and let him know that we start all of these episodes with our 6 in 60, which is 6 rapid fire questions to be answered in 60 seconds. All of them in 60 seconds, not each of them in 60 seconds. We have people who try to play that game. That won't cut it on the water cooler. All right, so Dr. Delshad, are you ready?
I'm ready. Go for it, Dave. Go.
All right. Sorry, I lost my voice. As people know who have watched this thing for like 2 months, it's been gone. I finally have a doctor's appointment coming up. So we'll see. I've already WebMD'd it, so I'm convinced I'm dying, but for now, I'm here. Um, all right. And here we go. What is one thing you would like to see stick around after this pandemic?
Curbside pickup.
When you're feeling overwhelmed or burned out, what do you do to reset and recharge?
I go to the ocean and I dig my feet into the sand.
So you took this big career pivot. It kind of looks like maybe a semi-retirement you were playing with. What does actual retirement look like for you?
Retirement is not in my vocabulary. I don't think I'll ever retire.
That makes 2 of us. What is one thing you didn't know about dentistry when you first went to dental school that you wish you knew?
That it's gross being people in people's mouths. Good God. Ooh,
You didn't foresee that, huh? Uh,
no.
what's the best piece of advice or wisdom you've ever received?
That this too shall pass.
I like that. Yeah. And by the way, you failed the test, but we're still going. I should say we failed the test.
Well,
My
you,
questions are
to
long.
be
I,
fair, Dave, you started me off at 55 or 54 seconds.
I don't know
So,
if that's fair. I don't. Well, we can replay this and see if that's true.
yeah,
Okay. In 5 words or less, what's the meaning of life? This is the one that usually gets people.
having a beautiful family that loves you.
Beautiful family that loves you. I love that. Yeah, that's definitely a fail. Sorry. You failed twice in a row. Yoni Frieden, how's it going? TJ represent. We were all in school together in Israel. I think Eddie was there for 3 days, and I was there for like 3 months. We were all supposed to be there for a year. Uh, did it really work out
I
for
was
us?
there for a week. Come on, Dave.
All right, so I usually like to start with people's origin story, and I think here as we dive into like this personal uh your personal story, it's the only logical place to start. So how did you get to this point? How did you get to first deciding to become a dentist? How did you decide to become a dentist, and what did that path toward becoming a dentist look like?
Yeah, this is a really great story. I'm just going to try to keep it really brief because it's actually got a lot of you know, detail to it. But here's how it went. I had never thought about dentistry. I had never imagined myself being a dentist, and then I always was fascinated by medicine. I thought it was awesome. It was a really good fit for me. And when I was in college, I went to work on a research panel for isolating cells out of fecal matter to define the DNA strands that are precancerous. And you basically have seen the commercials for Cologuard. We were working on the Cologuard uh,
Hmm.
system back then. We were trying to identify those DNA strands and proteins. So that was the fruit, kind of the fruit of my labor. And in doing so in the hospital, I would, be, working with all these doctors all day long. And it seemed like none of them were really happy. We would be in the elevator and I'd say, "Hey doc, so how do you like it?" And I was very rarely met with like, "Yeah, it's awesome. You should do it." Um, I had an uncle who was a general dentist, and I noticed that he was quite happy. He was very content. He had a great lifestyle. He had a very good work ethic. Um, and it happened to be that one day one of his assistants were out, so he invited me to come help him in his office. And what I noticed was that he had this amazing relationship with his patients. He had patients who really loved him and appreciated him, and they really enjoyed what he did for them. And I mean, they would bring him gifts and they would like hugs and stuff like that. Not to mention that he had a very comfortable lifestyle. He had a family life. He had all the things that he needed, you know, to have a good life. So it piqued my attention, and before you knew it, I said to him, "Hey, what do you think if I go into dentistry?" And he said to me emphatically, he said, "I think you should. I think it's a great idea." Um, and that was how it all happened. And I just went for it full force. And I knew that, I don't want to be miserable and I want to be happy. And, this guy does, nicely. So I made the change and the rest is history.
Okay, now I love that. I love that story and your uncle's experience as a dentist. I don't want to ruin the punchline where we're going, and in all honesty, I don't know where we're going. What the actual elements were that burned you out. Um, However, what I do know about dentistry and burnout, is that part of the aspect that sort of plays into that is this difficulty building relationships, because as the dentist enters the room, they then shove their hands into the patient's mouth. And so every conversation is the dentist talking and asking questions and the patient saying, oh, right? So this seems unusual that your uncle was able to build these relationships. Was it? Is
We
this
do
something
that
that
on
you did?
purpose, Dave. We do that on purpose, knowing that you have to agree with us.
Yeah,
It's,
I hear that.
it's done on, you know, um, and I get it. I get it. I think that part of the whole thing is that being a young teen, or maybe like 20, I didn't know about everything else that went along with it, what's part and parcel of being a dentist. It
Mhm.
works for some people, it doesn't really work for others. I never thought about, I didn't get to see all the bad outcomes. I didn't get to see all the, difficulties in running the office itself. I didn't get to see all the tax implications that it had or the staffing issues. Uh, so these were all elements that I never exposed myself to before making a decision.
So I want to get back to those things for sure, because that's about running the practice. But back to that relationship piece. As a dentist, in your experiences as a dentist, is it that's some like is that a piece of it that you are able to build those relationships with patients as like your uncle did? Like when you found yourself uh, in private practice, were people bringing you gifts? If so, or if not, what's the secret to that? Either yours and your uncle's, or just your uncle's, or is that something that you found, or is it not something that most dentists find?
Okay, yes, that's a great question. I'm sorry I skipped over it. The truth is that I would be not totally transparent if I said no. Of course, I enjoyed that aspect of it. I've had patients uh, come to my office to bring me a flourless cake that they made. That's incredibly decadent. They send me all kinds of Christmas gifts.
And is it
They
flourless because they like you or because they don't like you? Because I like to put flour in cake.
I know. I think it's because they don't like themselves. I'm just joking. I don't know. I don't know. It was quite tasty. I must say. I had patients who would drive from like I don't know Diamond Bar, which is an hour and a half to 2 hours away each direction to see me. I had they sent Christmas gifts and all kinds of stuff. When we had our babies, they all brought gifts, nice gifts. So I definitely did experience that side of it too. Now, the reason why, as dentists, we're able to foster these relationships with patients is because our business is very different from a physician's. I mean, if you can imagine, you don't plan on having two sore throats a year. You don't plan on having, a migraine every other week. So you don't really plan on seeing your physician. Heck, most people have a hard time going once a year for their physicals. But being a dentist, you see your patients on a regular basis because, over the course of 6 months, you've probably had 3,000 snacks and hundreds of meals. You may have like bit down on a fork or something like that. But the issue is that yes, you do build a long-term relationship with your dentist because it's a continual service that we all need. So you do have the opportunity to sit down and really talk to people and get to know them and get their life stories and ask them why do you look so despondent today?
Yeah.
Or where are you going for vacation? Hey, where did you apply for college? What is your, why is it you love getting your teeth cleaned so much? There's a lot there. And the truth is, and this is something that not a lot of people realize, but your mouth is inside your head, which is the most intimate part of your being. Okay. And a dentist or a hygienist or assistants, we're constantly sticking instruments in there like sharp things, fast spinning drills, all kinds of stuff. So in order to for a patient to sit down and have someone work on them like that, it requires a certain level of trust and comfort. And you know, you have to, at least spend a couple minutes establishing that kind of relationship before you can actually let someone treat you.
Yeah, I guess that level of trust kind of with your dentist. So we're speaking with Dr. Eddie Delshad, a dentist who forms relationships with his patients. But I wonder, asking you all out there as the patients, how many of you would say that you have a relationship, a positive relationship with your dentist? And how many of you are like me, where when you run into your dentist at the grocery store, you sort of avoid eye contact? It's so if you have any opinion on that, throw it in the window. This is Rachel Shar, my wife. I fear dentists. That's true. That's true. Even when our kids have to go to the dentist, that's the one place she doesn't want to take them.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a terrible dental patient myself. I don't like going to the dentist. So Rachel, it makes two of us.
Yeah. The dentist always criticizes me. I go to my general practitioner, and he always tells me I'm fat. I don't like going to the doctor. Um, so, all right. So you go to, oh, thank you for clarifying. Uh,
Oh, you're
he
too
does
kind.
not fear you, and that is good. Um, Alicia says, "I love my dentist. He remembers our every conversation, which is impressive considering his patient load." That's awesome.
See, well, there you go. There you go. It's a fantastic career because you get to meet people and discuss. They'll tell you what their fears are. I mean, they'll sit down and tell you the most intimate parts of their life because you sit there eye to eye and you have the opportunity to see one another on a regular basis.
How important is it that you make the time for that? Right? That you actually schedule that time in, like leave enough time for your patients. Uh, so I came across this article a while ago on dentistry and burnout, and I don't remember the details, but there was this cycle that they sort of uncovered where dentists, when they're feeling burnout, they sort of just make it about, well, I'll just churn through patients and make more money because I'm burned out anyway. So they add more patients to their schedule, and then they have less time with those patients, so they form less relationships, and then it just continues to cycle like that. Does that ring true to you in your experiences in dentistry?
Well, maybe. I think that if you want to tell me, are you asking me from a clinician standpoint or are you asking me from a consultant standpoint?
Both.
Um, Both. Okay. So I think as a clinician, yes. I mean, the more patients you see, excuse me, the more patients you see, the more your financial reward is going to be, you know? Um, and that benefits everybody in your office. I mean, I'm sorry to sound so crass, but it's the same as just any other thing. I mean, the more COVID tests the doctor does, the more financial reward he's going to gain.
Mhm.
Or even a pilot, the more flights, airplanes he commands, the more financial reward. So that's definitely a thing to consider. Burnout, I think that to clarify more is that once the dentist starts to burn out, he might bring on an associate dentist, and together, instead of seeing 10 patients, they might see 25. But from a consultant standpoint, if I were to tell you, it all depends on what kind of practice you're in. In some practices, the patients are there, they don't really want to sit down and kibitz with you. Some of them want to get in, and some of them and just get in and get out. But then there are others who are on the other side of the spectrum. I mean, that I've had patients who will sit down and ask me, well, tell me about your UCLA experience. What classes, what courses do you teach? Where did you go to dental school? How did you do in dental school? And these are atypical questions as well. These are questions, I mean, because most patients, after all, they don't really care where you went to dental school. They just care that you did go to one, you know? So it all, it's very different. It's very different. It depends on what socioeconomic status these patients are from, what area they live in, what insurances they have. I mean, if they don't have insurance and they're paying you like $1,200 or $1,500 cash out of pocket to do a crown, well, they might expect you to sit down and discuss, well, what you're going to do step by step and what it's going to look like in the end.
Hmm. Yeah,
Does
I
that make
imagine
sense?
all of those factors would come into play. I can imagine that. Casey Spiegel says, I love my dentist and hygienist. They do try to build that relationship. So when they poke around, you can't get too mad. That's true. They don't want their fingers getting bitten. Is that something that happens to
That
people like
too.
yours?
By the way, Dave, I've gotten bitten all the time. And there's one occasion where they were chomped down on my finger, and I had to wiggle my hand, and they bit down harder, and they were looking at me like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "You're biting me! Stop biting me!"
So, okay, so you get through, you never need stitches or anything, right? Like nothing like that.
No, no, but Cal OSHA was not happy.
Yeah. So, okay, so you go to dental school, and what's your experience at dental school like? It
I think that no matter who you speak to, there hasn't been one dentist who comes out of dental school saying that it was easy. It was a cakewalk. It was tough. It's twice. If you think about it, it's a dual curriculum compared to medical school, because you have to learn the medicine in the morning, and then all the medical students go home and they chill, and you have to do labs and patient treatment in the afternoon. So it was not easy, but I have to say, I pride myself on going to one of the best dental schools in the country, doing one of the best residencies in the country. It was not easy, but it was a fantastic experience, and it
you
really
pride yourself on that, but you
cared.
didn't put it in the bio. I asked you for a bio, and you didn't put it in the bio. It's like,
Yeah,
so what?
well, it
So
gets
give them a plug.
dicey
What's
because
the
now
best dental?
I'm a Bruin now, so it gets,
Wait, so
don't want
what's the best dental school or one of the best dental schools in the country? Give them a plug now.
Maryland, University of Maryland, of course.
Nice.
Shout out to all the people there on Baltimore Street who do the good work. All the oral surgeons that I trained with, they are awesome, and I miss them sorely. Especially Dr. Idzik, my dental school mom. She's
Awesome.
awesome.
Awesome. So okay. So but I cut you off. So you went to one of the best dental schools, University of Maryland, and but it was grueling. But
Yes.
is there this excitement to become a dentist still, or do you start questioning your life choices at that point? What does that look like for you?
Oh gosh, I think you question your life choice every day on the way to school. you
Yeah.
know, it's tough. It's tough, but as a very, very, very smart friend of mine named Dave Shar told me back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
He said that the easy way is never the right way.
I said that.
You said that. You said
Wow.
that. And it stayed with me for over 20 years. The easy way is never the right way. So it was hard. It was grueling. You question yourself. You're like, why am I doing this? What is all this for? But really, I mean, you go on and you do it. And, it feels good to walk across that stage.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's so wise. But we should have laid this ground rule out beforehand. No more quotes from me in our high school years. That's don't do that. That's I'm, t- I'm
I'll try,
I'm half
but they
teasing.
pop up.
I'm half
Sorry.
teasing. So okay. So you get out of dental school, you're working for somebody else, or do you like open up your private practice right away?
Yeah, no, I didn't open up my private practice right away. I'm a true academic, and that my first job in every state has always been to be faculty somewhere. So
Mm.
upon graduation, I was a resident and a faculty member at University of Maryland, and then after I stepped away from that, then I was associating for dental offices, other practices around Maryland. As you know, that I always knew that like Maryland would not be the place that I'd stay long term. So I moved out to California. And again, in true fashion, my first job in California was my university appointment at UCLA.
Mhm.
Once I was there for about a year or so, then I opened my own practice. Um, I ran that for about 10 years until I sold it and I made a pivot.
So for those of you, for those of us unfamiliar um, with how dentists work, when you are in, when you are on faculty, um, and are you working as a dentist um, with your students on patients, or are you getting all the hands-on stuff, or did was that not happening? Were you just sort of teaching but not actually getting your hands dirty as you didn't know what happened when you entered dentistry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I'm at the dental school, either one that I taught at, 90% of what I do is clinical. I'm a clinical faculty, which means that, yes, just as you said, what I do is I cover students or residents or foreign trained dentists when they're practicing, doing their work on patients. So I have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. I have to make sure that they do it the right way. I have to monitor them at every step. There's competencies, which means that there are clinical tests, so I have to check them all for that. And then before they dismiss a patient, I have to make sure that what they've done is clinically acceptable.
Mhm.
And remember, clinically acceptable in the dental school is a very, very, very high bar compared to clinically acceptable out in private practice. So there are times when you have to say, listen, I'm sorry, this looks great, but we're going to keep this filling as a temporary, and we're going to need to bring this patient back, and we're going to have to redo and improve on this filling or this crown or whatever it was that we were doing. I do some classroom and lectures and all that kind of good stuff, but that's not what speaks to my heart. What speaks to my heart is the hands-on human interaction.
Mhm. So, and then that led you to opening your own practice, and you did that for 10 years.
I did, but Dave, I think it was year 4 or year 5 that I realized that, gosh, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. I had to continue because of several different life situations and the fact that you can't just turn around and sell your practice 4 or 5 years into owning it. um I mean, you can, but it's just not the right thing to do. And plus, I really had to make sure that this was a wise and calculated decision. So by the time that I figured out that this really isn't going to work for me, I think I was 7 years into it. And I came home and I had a discussion with my wife, and I said, look, Iris, I'm just not happy. And it's translating into all kinds of different things. The office, the work ethic, the patience. I think they can read it on me. Um, I It was a tough decision, and luckily, I mean, I'm very blessed to have such a understanding wife. And she looked at me and she said, listen, do what you think is right. And I listed the practice with a broker. I had to change several brokers actually, but ultimately I sold it. And the truth is, and I didn't mention this to you before because I want to have some surprises for you after all, is that my plan was not to go be a broker. There was a shakeup at the dental school right when I was selling the practice. And I thought, this is fantastic. This is going to be my golden opportunity to be a full time professor. And I will be in my happy place and everything's going to be just fine. But as man plans and God laughs, about 3 weeks after that, coronavirus shut down the universities and all our lives. So that dream never happened.
Wow. Wow. So COVID sidetracked you. Yeah.
It did.
So a couple things there. One is you said that it just around year 4 or 5, you recognize this wasn't for me. And you kind of touched on this. Was it, what was it specifically? You had said something about, managing the finances. You might have said something about managing the employees. What was it that was really just like, I don't want to be doing this?
Yeah, if I can make a dental joke, I'm gonna say it's an amalgamation of a lot of different things. Sorry, got a little bit of corny there
Yeah.
is okay, right? So yeah, Dave, it was a lot of things coming together. I was the person who was doing the dentistry, I was doing the human resources, I was doing the marketing, I was doing the accounts receivable, accounts payable, I was doing the procurement, risk management. Um, the the psychology. I was playing psychologist. Um, I mean, there were too many hats to be worn at one time. And here's the funny thing, which I tell all my, like, every single time I have a lecture for people who are matriculating and going out into the real world, is that, sorry, but all that love of dentistry that you have, once you go out into the private practice, that is going to compose of 25% of your day.
Mm.
75% of your day is not, that has nothing to do with dentistry. It could be you frantically calling a temp agency to fill a position for one of your employees who fell and sliced their wrists on, a sharp object when they were painting, or a flood that destroyed your office, or the fact that a car hit a pole and now all your internet and your voice over IP phones are down.
Hmm.
Not to mention that you have to do all the regular things that, like fighting with the lab, making sure you have the right uh, supplies and all that kind of good stuff. So I realized that all those awesome things that I really wanted to do had to take a back seat to all the not so awesome things I had never imagined doing.
That rings so true to me. Um, I often say the same thing that when you go into consultancy as a private consultant and speaker, it's also the same thing. Like the amount of time that I'm actually on a stage or working inside an organization with the client is minuscule compared to all of the other stuff, the marketing, the sales, the finances, the just managing the business. I wonder, all of you who are viewing us right now live or on the replay, is this just a universal truth? How much of your work consists of the core work that you thought you were getting into, your core job, and how much of it is all the other stuff, like the bureaucracy if you're inside an organization, sometimes if you're external to an organization but working with organizations with a lot of bureaucracy, the management, all of those things, as opposed to the core activities that maybe are your true passion. Because I have a hunch that you're not alone here.
I'm not alone, and I have to tell you that for every talk I give, for every 1 hour that I have to give a talk, I have to invest about 3 to 4 hours into prepping for it.
Mm.
So I totally understand. And I'll tell you, I'll fast forward on my brokerage side. I have a client in LA County who, we were selling his practice and his real estate, and it was over a $2 million deal. And I found him a cash buyer that they were so eager to close. And, I was happy. I'm like, wow, like maybe we can take that vacation or, like whatever, buy a couple new Mercedes after all. I'm just joking. I just need one car.
You're in LA.
But
A couple Mercedes.
but he pulled after me investing like a lot of money of my own and the time, and with gas being $7 or $8 a gallon, a tremendous amount of capital on my end. One day he abruptly pulled that listing and he didn't sell it, and we all walked away, uh, you know, shaking our heads.
Hmm.
And that does happen. And that does happen. But what you have to realize is that at some point, burnout happens because there's a perfect tsunami of things that come together. One of the things that, really pushed me over the edge, and again, I really want to share with everybody who's watching a real life story. And this is me. I come into my practice one day, and I was always happy to be there. Actually, I mean, I was never not happy to be at work. And I saw a patient on the schedule who was just there 3 or 4 days prior. And I went up to the receptionist. I'm like, look, we didn't treatment plan anything on them. They only had a cleaning. Why are they back? And it's like, oh, they have some concerns. They didn't tell me what. So fast forward, the patient comes in the chair, they're looking at me, and they're like, well, I've been having diarrhea for 3 or 4 days.
Hmm.
And I said, okay. They
Isn't
said,
that a
well,
different type of doctor that takes care of that?
right, correct. So I said to her, I said, well, okay, um, just as you said, I mean, I don't know why you're here, but she's like, well, I was here for a cleaning and your cleaning caused my diarrhea.
Hmm.
I was like, of all my years of studying, research, teaching, reading journals, CE courses, I'm like, I've never seen a case of diarrhea from a dental clinic. So I thought I'm losing my mind. So I said, wait 1 second. While I went to my office and I Googled instances of, people getting diarrhea from a dental clinic. And, remember, this is like probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I really couldn't find anything. And if I found something, it was just like that, it doesn't happen. And while I sat down in front of them, I'm like, listen, so how are you feeling now? She's like, well, I'm a lot better.
Good.
I'm like, great. So why are you here? So she came to me to spend 40 minutes of my time to complain about, diarrhea that she was experiencing from a dental cleaning. And then when I got home later that night, I was, just thinking to myself on my long drive home, I said, well, maybe she had some bad sushi.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't wash
I
her
see.
hands before she ate. Maybe,
Could have been.
like she ate something that just didn't agree with her stomach. And I, for me, I was like, I want to be a dentist. I don't want to be a psychologist. And this is just not fun. Not fun. And that is what really did it for me. The normal and typical things, for instance, of a crown fracturing or an employee not showing up or someone quitting or, a flood in the office. These are things that are part and parcel of life.
Right.
Just like you park in a parking lot and someone dings your door. Whoop-de-doo, it happens. But all the other things that you just never imagine that you have to deal with,
Hmm.
they are the small things, the smallest things. They add up, and suddenly you're burnt out.
Keeps things interesting, but
It
yeah,
does.
I could see that. There's a lot to unpack there. One of them is that this is why you don't invite childhood friends onto your podcast because then you end up talking about diarrhea. But no, totally joking. Though you are the first guest to talk about diarrhea. Um, but
I had to. I'm sorry. It was too interesting.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Alicia says about 5% of her job is defined by the actual role description. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not surprised. Um, so so you find yourself burned out. There's a lot to um, unpack there. But one of the things that you had said was around year 4 or 5, you started, maybe you described it as like not wanting to do this, but maybe it was a loss of passion, perhaps for the work before becoming burnout. I don't know, but what I do know is that burnout, as you described, is contagious, and passion is contagious on the flip side, right? So when you come in and you're in private practice and you're feeling passionate, that's going to trickle down to your clients and to your employees. They're all going to feel it. And then when that goes away and becomes replaced with something like burnout, they're going to feel it and they're going to start experiencing it. And so a lot of people hang on, and they think it's gonna just fix itself or what, and they don't even realize that the damage is multiplying because it's impacting others. It's this crossover effect where it's impacting others and crossing over. You brought up your wife, Iris. I wonder, there's a lot of really interesting research on the crossover effect of burned out um, uh, burned out people who are burned out at work, and they come home, and through a number of steps it ends up burning out their spouse, right? So when you feel burned out and you feel like there isn't this work life balance, it starts affecting the work life balance of the spouse, and then they take that to work, and it starts impacting. And when you look at that, the way you impact people within your own firm, and then the way you impact the people at home who then go to their own organizations, and then it really just spreads like wildfire. I don't want to get too personal and bring it home, but was there any impact at home? Or you can just move on or talk about diarrhea some more if you don't want to talk about that. That's
Gosh, I have to preface it by saying that there's nothing that a couple of glasses of Cabernet can't fix. And let me tell you, we had a lot of Cabernet every night for dinner, and that's how I packed on the pounds, but that's a separate story.
yeah.
It absolutely, I think the right word for it is compounding.
Mm-hmm.
It all compounds. Yes, absolutely. What you're saying is it all compounds on itself. I mean, I remember, one night when, from all my frustrations and all my, I don't know, my mind being so not at peace, you know, when I woke up, my wife said, I I thought I was going to have to call an ambulance for you because you kept waking up and sitting up in bed and like pretend like breathing real deep, like as if like you just pulled yourself out of a pool of water.
Wow.
Um, so you do bring it home, absolutely, and affects everybody, affects people at work and affects people at home. And if you're not happy in one, in one part of your life, it spills over. I mean, I had employees who loved me and loved working for me, but they would bring baggage from home, and it would show. It would bring down the whole team, and it goes the other way around. Absolutely.
I it's so you came to this spot where you had to make this decision on what to do about it. And I told you when I asked you to be on, I said, this is such a universal thing. You're just a trendsetter because you did it all before 2020. But you came to the spot that so many people currently find themselves in or recently have found themselves in where it's not working for them anymore. And I imagine in that space, there's this internal conversation about whether I just keep pushing forward. Do I adjust things within my current business, organization, job role, industry, etc., to make it work? Like, is there something that I can tweak? Or do I just need to exit? What did that thought process look like for you, if it was conscious? How did you end up getting to the point where you decided that the best way was to exit? And I know you didn't fully exit the industry because you still do some dental work, you still teach, and you help other dentists. But there was this exiting from your practice, and that couldn't have been an easy thing. You went from year 4 or 5 to year 10. That's not clearly, there was some dialogue, internal or external, happening.
Absolutely. I think Dave, thanks for the shout out. I think that I would say this. I think that's the most important question of the morning. I think that the first step is to first find out if what is bothering you is something that's rectifiable or not. You know, I mean, I think if you have an office that you just love and there's one bad employee, you know, by all means, let them know they're the weakest link and remove them. Or if there's something that you just don't enjoy doing, like I abhorred doing root canals, so I started referring all of them out, and that brought me happiness. But you know what happened, Dave? Like I realized that happiness was fleeting. Is that 8 months later, I'm still referring my root canals, and it's not bothering me, but I'm still not happy. I'm still my unhappy self. So I went through an empiric process of eliminating bad things from my life. And I wanted to see if that one by one is going to help me get back up on my horse. And that's why it took so long. That's the internal conversation in your head. You constantly have to try, you have to do your due diligence in trying to make things better for yourself. Okay. And then once you come to the realization that there is not a remedy to be had for you to be completely happy, then you might then have to gather the emotional and the psychological fortitude and say, I have to make a change and I have to make a big change. Okay. And get ready because you know, it's a scary change. It's a very scary change. But then once you decide that, the most important thing is having a plan because you cannot make an exit from your current status without having a plan. I mean, that is just not responsible. You
Right.
know, um, I think that once you have that plan and you have the vision and you have a way of achieving it, then you have to be really, really strong. You have to gather your emotional fortitude because it's not an easy decision taking this white paper that you've worked so hard for and saying, you know what? I'm a business owner, I'm a professional, all that kind of good stuff. I've dedicated so many years of my life to it and I'm going to let it go. You know, people are going to judge you for it. Get ready for there to be blowback. I got a lot of blowback. People told me, "What? You're going to go work for
Huh.
people? What are you going to do? You're going to go work at Macy's? Like what are you going to do?" You know, you have to be strong enough to know that what you're doing is the right thing and that you're going to be okay and you're going to execute your plan. I think those are all very important elements in making the switch. And it's scary. It's scary all the way through. But, you know, if you've made the right decision, if you made an informed decision, it'll be a good decision.
Yeah. So I love the element that you're talking about there in terms of potential shame involved in it, and the shift in identity, and the meaning making that process that happens, where um I could see labeling yourself as failure versus transition, where you're not actually exit, you're transitioning to the next phase, but that takes a lot. And I've got to say, when we were younger, I would go over to Eddie's house on like a random Saturday or Sunday, and you'd walk in there, and there'd be like 50 people in there. You'd have more people in there than I knew, and they were all like direct relatives, aunts and uncles, and it was loud, and everybody had an opinion on
Rowdy, loud
everything,
and rowdy.
right? But everybody had an opinion on everything. Everybody was parenting you. When you turn to your mom and say, "Hey, I'm gonna go. Is it okay?" What like your aunt would say, "Now, Eddie, don't," and it's like, "What?"
Yeah,
Like, so when you have a community like that, it's so powerful and empowering. But you also, it's got to build this sense of potential guilt and shame, because everybody's going to be watching your moves and passing judgment, even if it's out of love.
yeah.
They're going to be doing that. I know a few, I'm friends with a few entrepreneurs, career long entrepreneurs, who left um, entrepreneurship after decades of entrepreneurship to go work for an organization within the past couple months. That's not an easy decision to make, and
Right.
and for people who are doing the opposite, and they've worked within an organization forever, and they're going into self-employment, or they're escaping their current industry and going to a new industry, or they're deciding to go home and be a stay-at-home parent, or whatever else they're deciding to do, or to go into self-employment. Those are big, scary, heavy decisions.
They are. I call. It's two words, Dave. Two unsayable words. The F word and the C word. Failure and change.
Mm.
I mean, around my practice, this change was the most scary word that could be enunciated. I mean, honestly. And yes, like my family and friends and all those around me who actually really care and love me, they said all kinds of stuff to me, and I knew that it would be an uphill battle. But before I made the change, you have to know who are the most important people in your life. And I thought about it and I said, the most important person who I need to have on board is just one person. That's my wife.
Mm. That support is
And she
important.
was on board. She was on board 100%. I don't need to impress anybody else. And then, just as you said, when one of these family members came up to me and said, "Well, don't you think that this is a sign of weakness? You're giving it all up and you're walking away." I looked at him and I said, "Honey bun, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength,
Mm.
because I gathered my wherewithal to do something hard, something that perhaps you're too afraid to do." And I think that was a good paradigm shift for him. I don't think he mentioned anything ever again to me.
I like that. I like that. And that you got away with calling him Honey Bun. That's
I did, like I had to channel my, like southern, back Maryland, like sweetie pie, honey bun, like it
you
ain't what you
forget.
think.
Around here we say Hun, not Honey Bun, just
Hun.
Hun.
See, that's downtown. Downtown Baltimore is Hun. I think if you go down a little bit more east or more south, it's more
Yeah,
like honey bun.
yeah. That's absolutely. People project on you, and that's exactly right. So, um, now from here, you made this transition with the support of your wife, which is so important to have that support of your closest ally, whoever that might be in your life. But really, it needs to come from in here. You need the confidence that, regardless of what anybody else says, that you're confident in your decision. And it looks like you were very calculated about it, so that when you finally got to it, you were confident in that decision. So you ended up,
Yeah.
and I know we're coming toward the end here, but I want to get to this. So you ended up, and you said through COVID impacting this role that you thought you'd be able to play, this expanded role, um, uh, on the faculty at UCLA. COVID sort of threw your curveball, and you ended up in dental brokerage. Would that be the right dental practice
Yes.
brokerage? Is
Yes.
that the right terminology? And
Yes.
so you ended up helping dentists sell their practice. Could you speak for a minute on how your personal experience helps inform um, that the interactions you have with your clients at the brokerage?
Absolutely. I think that let me tell you that I have several clients who are maybe even younger than I am who are suffering from brokerage and came to me looking to sell their practices. And
Suffering
these,
from brokerage? That was a
huh?
Freudian slip. So you said suffering from
Oh,
brokerage. Suffering from burnout?
burnout.
Yeah,
Did
there
I
you
say
go.
suffering from brokerage?
Yeah,
Well, nobody suffers from my brokerage.
there you
Let me
go.
tell you that.
Glad to
You
give you
know,
an
yeah, they were
opportunity
suffering
to
from severe
clarify.
burnout. And two of these dentists are actually people who built offices from scratch with their own hands. Okay. Um, I think that, a lot of dentists love to list their practice with me because I understand them. I can wrap my head around them. I can commiserate. I can see their issue eye to eye. And I've been there, done that. I have the t-shirt too. I tell them, I share my experiences of my transition. And that helps me help them on a different level. And that helps them understand that I understand them on a different level.
Mhm.
And they open up to me. They tell me their wants. They tell me where they've been. They tell me about, their son that they lost in a traffic accident on the way home from work. And this is just after maybe like 10 minutes of meeting a client. I mean, these are not things that you would particularly tell a stranger. So what I bring to the table allows them to really be comfortable and know that they're going to be taken care of and that they are not the only ones. Okay. Now
Yeah.
I have to tell you on the other side, when I show a practice and I have people who come to see my practices and they look at me, they're like, well, you're a dentist too, right? I'm like, yeah, they're like, well, where's your practice? I said, I sold it. And they look at me like, well, do you recommend I buy a practice? I'm like, absolutely.
Huh.
And they'll look at me like, well, it didn't work for you. You know why you sold your practice? Why should I buy a practice? And look, this is just a little bit of comedic relief, and levity goes a long way. And I look him straight in the eye with a straight face. And Dave, if he knows me, I look serious even when I'm not serious. So imagine. And I say to them, I want you to be miserable. I don't want me to be miserable. and let suffice it to say that they do come back and they do buy my listings because after all, some people might want to be miserable.
No.
I'm just joking. They are not miserable. They do real well, and I make sure that they do real well and they're happy in their decision.
I can imagine that some of the wisdom that you could provide them from your experiences would help them set themselves up right from the beginning. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, but and we've really got to wrap this up. But I thought it was super interesting. I don't know if anybody else caught this, but when you were talking about your dental practice and what you really enjoyed about your dental practice, you talked about people telling you about their lives and telling you everything about them. And then when we got to talk about your brokerage, you started to tell us about how great it is because people tell you about everything about their lives. It's very reminiscent of sort of a Clifton Strengths kind of approach to a career that it almost doesn't matter where you are. Uh, there's something that's a piece of you that you're looking for that outlet within whatever you do professionally, and you've been able to find it in both places. And it sounds like from your story, as I'm reflecting on your story today, it sounds like there was this increasing amount of noise that was getting in the way of that. That's the part you loved, and there was this increasing amount of noise that was getting in the way. And so at the brokerage, you get more of that and less of the distractions and less of that um, bureaucratic or distracting, you know, those elements that came from having to manage your own practice and dealing with this one patient's diarrhea. If you're just tuning in, long story. He's spoke about that part.
I have to say, Dave, you summed it up beautifully. You really summed it up beautifully. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Thank you. I didn't plan to say that. And so if people want to get in touch with you because they heard all your horrible stories and they're like, I want to get my own practice, right? And we have clarified that this is not the same for everyone and that you can find real meaning in that type of work as well. But if somebody's looking to purchase a dental practice or they're looking to sell their practice, that QR code right above your head, if they open up their cell phone to their camera and hover right over that, see, we're not actually right next to each other. It's the magic of television. But if they hover right over your QR code, that will take them to your brokerage, and they can contact you there. Where else can they reach out to you if they want to continue this conversation with you?
I'll be more than happy to. As you know, I'm a people person. I love conversing with people, and it brings me a lot of joy to help people up. So by all means, please get in touch.
Where can they? Where's the best? Where's the best way place that they can reach out?
They're more than happy if they email me. That's probably the most efficient way to do it.
Okay, and they can find that on the brokerage site.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you
or
heard
you can
it here.
share it on your screen. It's Eddie EDDIE at integritypracticesales.com.
Okay, well, we will add that into the chats. I can't do it on the fly because I'm not as good as I told you I am, like with this technology stuff. We're just getting by here. So, but we will definitely get that out to people. And if anybody's looking to find some past episodes of the water cooler or connect with me generally, this QR code that I can touch, right? Boink. That one, you can hover over there and we can connect. See, you can't connect with mine.
I can't touch it.
But we should definitely stay connected. If you're watching the replay, please make sure to let us know you're there. Comment, say hi, ask questions, and we'll continue to interact with those feeds for the next couple weeks. Finally, I want to invite all of you to come back next time, which is on January 4th, same time, Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, or what time is it Pacific right now? Or when we started?
Oh, right now it's 10:05.
So at 9 a.m. Pacific time. But come join us. We will be, I'm just, sorry, my notes, it was so good. And then I lost my notes. We will be here with Jasmine Kelly. She is an incredible IO psychology consultant and coach. And she's going to be discussing why every organization needs an organizational psychologist. We touched on a little bit of that today. But I hope that you all can join us. That's next time, January 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Eddie Delshad. It was really an honor to have you on here to have a very public conversation about diarrhea and other things.
gosh, it's my pleasure. You know, it's part and parcel of being a healthcare professional, Dave. Sorry.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's well, thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Everyone have a great holiday and a great new year.